Hi, I'm Rob May, I'm MD of Ramsack, and welcome to Cyber Chat. So today I want to talk to you about steps that you can take to avoid a ransomware attack. So ransomware has been around for a long time. The first ransomware attack happened in 1989 and it was called the AIDS Trojan, and I actually remember receiving this. It came in on a 5¼ inch floppy disk into the office, and back in the 80s, AIDS was very vogue in the news, and this came in, and it was a survey supposedly from the NHS that you had to run, and it was going to tell you how many of your colleagues were likely to get AIDS, and people ran it. Anyway, that's the first recorded ransomware attack. And back then, a ransom attack was typically what's called a lock screen attack. So what would happen is it would install a piece of software on your computer so that when you turned it on, it locked the screen and it displayed a message. These days, whilst lock screens still exist, it's far more likely that a ransomware attack is actually going to encrypt your data. So it's actually going to cut up your data and insert a code so that you can't access it. And unless you put a key in, which you get when you pay the ransom, your computer is then left inoperable. So what can you do to protect yourself? I think the first thing is obviously make sure you've got antivirus, but also make sure that you're updating your computer. What do you do when you get a message to say software updates available? Normally when I'm asking a room this question, when I'm doing a training course, you get a mix. You get some people who say, I just say yes, install. More and more you get people who say, well, it's now forced upon us, which is a good thing. But equally, you get a big chunk of people who just say snooze, remind me later. It's not that long ago that we saw in the press the NHS cyber attack, or that's how it was reported. Now, it wasn't an NHS cyber attack. The attack was a ransomware attack called Wannacry. And Wannacry impacted 75% of NHS trusts, and lots of operations had to be cancelled and so on. The thing is, Wannacry was attacking a vulnerability in Microsoft Windows that had been found 5 years previously. And in every service pack that Microsoft had issued, they had fixed the vulnerability. So if you'd been loading software updates, you couldn't get that variant of Wannacry. And what that shows you is that 75% of the NHS trusts hadn't loaded those updates. So make sure that you load your software updates. The other thing that's really important is your backup. If your system is encrypted with a ransomware attack, what you don't want to be doing is doing business with the criminal. You don't want to be negotiating or paying, and typically the error message that comes up tells you what the fee is that you've got to pay, and there's a clock, and as the clock's ticking by, so the cost of the ransom increases. You don't want to be doing that. You want to be getting your computers disconnected, and you want to be going back to backup. Now for me, when I'm talking to clients about backup, it's no longer an issue of backup. The real discussion point is recovery. It's not whether you're backing up your data, it's what's your recovery time. Because there are a lot of different ways of doing backup, and some are very effective in terms of recovery time, and some are just cripplingly slow. And again, you often get what you pay for. We got called into a client not so long ago whose incumbent IT company were struggling to deal with a ransomware attack, and Ramsack had been recommended to them. And when we went in and we looked at the backup that they'd got, and we did a calculation of how long it was going to take to restore their critical data, it was nearly a week. And their business was nearly crippled because of it. So recovery is really important. And you should know, you should be asking your IT guys, whether that's internal or external, how long does it take us to recover? And is that appropriate for your business? And you need to be able to sign that off to say, yes, that's appropriate. Third thing is disable Excel macros for the majority of your users. Macro attacks are a really common form of cyber attack. So again, speak to IT, get macros disabled. And be really aware of email. Be aware of dodgy emails coming in, phishing emails. It's interesting. So our help desk runs 24 hours a day, and we get sent lots of emails from people saying, you know, this email feels wrong. Is it? Well, the silly thing is 99% of those emails are dodgy emails. So you could save a whole load of time. My view is, if you get an email and it feels dodgy, just trust your gut instinct and just delete it. You know, don't waste time. Just delete it, and if it's important, it will typically come back. But you know, for all those people who are just thinking this feels wrong, it almost always is. The other thing to do is, wherever possible, use two-factor or multi-factor authentication. We used to talk about 2FA, two-factor authentication, and it's more frequently now referred to as MFA in terms of multi-factor authentication. So where that's available, use it. So, you know, a typical example of this will be your online banking, where if you're using the banking website, you enter information and it will prompt you to also enter information on your mobile phone. That's a good example, and wherever that's available, you should enable it. And people don't. It's available on lots of systems, and people don't because they're too lazy. And my advice is you should, because this is going to help protect you. The other thing is, be aware of what Wi-Fi you're connecting to. You know, only use safe, trusted connections. And if you absolutely have to use public Wi-Fi, be really thoughtful about what you're doing. Wherever possible, use a VPN. Just take the steps to remain safe. You know, I know plenty of people who will only ever do online banking when they're on their home network. They won't do it anywhere else, and that's not a bad policy. And finally, you know, avoid dubious websites, both criminal websites, but also also websites of dodgy content, because they're very well known to carry attacks. There are now pixel attacks. So the way those work is, you visit a website and they can infect individual pixels on the screen. So if you move your mouse over that pixel, it then launches the installation of a piece of ransomware software. So I hope those are useful. Stay safe, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.